We're going to have John and Jackson talk about e-commerce, selling online, and more. John, again, is so much more than just e-commerce, but we're going to talk to them about that. So feel free to put your questions there as well. So looking here, Jackson Cunningham, JJ Suspenders. I interviewed him at smarthustle.com. Happy to hear his insight. And John Lawson with Colder Ice, a friend of mine, a fellow speaker, and more. With that, gentlemen, welcome to the Survive and Thrive discussion. John Lawson, good to see you, my friend. And Jackson Cunningham, thanks for being here today. Jackson, how you feeling today? How are things in your world? You doing okay? And Jackson, you may be on mute. You may not be. But while
Yeah,
you're getting that, oh, there we go. Jackson, how you feeling?
yeah. I'm feeling good, and just hunkering down and preparing for the long haul.
Yeah, indeed. I hope it's not too long. Now you're scaring me, Jackson. But thanks for being here. Jackson Cunningham with JJ Suspenders. John Lawson, a friend who I've known for years. Thanks, John Lawson, for spending your time being with us today. I really appreciate it. How you feel?
All good, all good.
Good, good. In ATL. So, John Lawson, before we start out, can you just share with us a little bit about yourself? I know you're author, speaker, done a lot, got a lot of experience, but I think it's good that people know
Yeah.
who you are, the community you serve, where to find you. And then Jackson, I'd love to turn that same thing over to you. John, the look on your face is like, I don't want to talk about myself, but I'd like you to.
I hate that. But anyway, hey, I was going bankrupt in like 2000, 2001, and somebody told me you could actually sell stuff on eBay. And I was like, really? Could I? And I started listing some stuff on eBay. It started selling. Long story short, I ended up leaving my job in 2004 and never looked back. I've had an e-commerce business for, close to 20 years and done a lot in that space. About 2009, started teaching and helping others. And, so I've got a little bit of gray beard going on, and that's what I do.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, John Lawson. Thank you very much. Jackson Cunningham, can you give a little overview of yourself? I think it's important as we enter this discussion about selling online and more from you gentlemen. You guys know marketing, John's written books, and so much wide knowledge. Again, as you have questions, ladies and gentlemen, put them in the chat. I'm going to be asking Jackson these questions, John these questions, so put them in the Microsoft My Questions tab. But Jackson, why don't you give us a little overview as well of yourself, who you are, where you've been, where you're at, so we can understand your background.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in e-commerce for a little over 10 years, and I used to be in the real estate industry, but kind of realized that I was better at like the
And you may have froze, Jackson. No problem. When you come back, let me know. I know the Microsoft team will do that. But John, one thing I want to dive into, people are trying to pivot, John. People are trying to sell online, and they
Uh-oh,
have their things. Jackson, you froze there a bit. So your internet connection may be a bit shaken there.
Okay. Things are working on my end, but
Okay,
can
cool.
you hear me?
No problem. I can hear you well. Continue on with your intro. Start that again. Go ahead. We're good.
Sure. I was going to say that I started off in real estate about 10 years ago, and can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool. And I realized that like I was better at getting the leads online than actually doing the real estate part. And so I thought it would be really cool if I could start selling a product instead, and then just focus on the marketing. So I've started 3 different e-commerce companies, and they're all still alive, and each one is a totally different industry. And yeah, I've basically been living and breathing e-commerce for the last 10 years.
I love it. Well, thanks for being here. And John Lawson as well. Thanks for being here. I think I'll turn the first question to you, Jackson, just as both of you kind of get a sense, as I'm seeing many businesses, small businesses are hurting and they're trying to reinvent themselves, think of what to do. For those, Jackson, that are trying to sell online who have no clue where to start. They're home. They're scared they're going to get laid off. Maybe they've been selling just a bit online. That's a question we've talked before, so I know you can handle it. Where should they start, Jackson? What's that 1 or 2 things that they should start? What should they be thinking of?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of like taking action. I know for me, at least, there was like a long period where I was kind of thinking about it and researching and reading books, and felt like I could sort of like prepare everything in advance. But really, like, you can never prepare everything. Things are always changing. And the way to learn the most is just by like getting started, even though it's going to be far from perfect. So for me, that was like setting up a store for e-commerce. Like just set it up and start, and then you'll start running into problems and you'll learn how to solve them.
I like you said that you'll be running into problems and then you'll learn how to solve them. And I think I
Yeah.
know for me, that's how it's been as well, learning how. John, so let's say once I set up my store, and again, there's a variety of options. You're welcome to touch on that as well if you want to, but I set that up in some way. Is there any guidance you can give to what's next? And I know, John, I know it's about the hard work, just getting there, doing it. But for those, there's thousands of people who've signed up for this who are like, okay, we did all the little research. We went to Google or Bing, and we set up our store now. What next, John?
Tell your mom and your brother and sister to buy something. I mean, it's not that simple, man. I mean, a lot of times you got to find an audience. I'm a guy that kind of finds the audience before I find the product, right? So I would start, if you already got the store, you already got the product. Let's say you're moving from a brick and mortar thing, or you have an idea, start finding out if there's an audience for it. Because when we sit in our little space, which is our head, right? When we sit in that place, everything sounds like rainbows until, like he said, you get out there and you try and start something. And then all of a sudden, things start popping up. So I'm kind of like, what can we do in a microcosm to mimic the macrocosm? And I think there are marketplaces that are good for that. If you're doing something that is, handmade, or you make it yourself, try selling it on Etsy. Try putting it on an eBay just to see if there is some customer base for you. And then once you understand that process, you can move that over into that store and start optimizing your store based on what you've learned from that audience that you just put together. That's kind of another thing you can do.
Guys, so is it enough, John? I'm curious. So, I like water bottles, John. And my mother, John, says, honey, you make the cutest water bottles. Everybody wants them in my church or my community, Boy Scouts, whatever, people are buying them. Is that enough, John, for me to plunk down a few $1,000s and then start launching full because I like water bottles? I know how to make them. So everybody else would like them. Is that enough?
You're going to spend $10,000 on water bottles?
Or whatever,
Don't.
meaning to launch it. I like it. I know how to do it. And the people who are closer to me say I should do it. Is that what you mean by audience? Is that enough to then start it? Or do I need to do more than that?
No, who uses water bottles?
Me, I like them.
No, these are the questions you need to start asking. That's what I'm saying. You need to find out who uses water bottles and then start going there and see what they're saying about water bottles. I'm sure there are plenty of people on Instagram and Facebook that talk about water bottles. They're going to talk about what they like and what they don't like about water bottles. There's a whole platform called Amazon. On Amazon, they sell a lot of water bottles. Start doing research on Amazon. Start reading all of the reviews and comments about water bottles. That'll tell you what people hate about most water bottles. So when you go to creating your water bottle, you make sure that it addresses that issue. So that becomes a marketing strategy for you. Feel me? So that's why I say you got to do some research other than, your friends and family. I was being funny, man.
Right. I got you, man. It's not just launching it first and hoping for the best. You're about the research target. Jackson, what are some of the things you've done? Jackson, you built 3 e-commerce companies and et cetera. What are things that you wish you may have known when you did it the first time versus now? And or what are some common mistakes that you're seeing businesses make as they're launching e-commerce businesses? John has alluded to one, not finding that target market. What else is happening that you're saying, man, I wish they would stop doing this?
Right. Yeah, John had some really good comments. I think I get like probably one suggestion a month from my mom with like what she thinks is the next $1 million idea. So you definitely don't want to take every idea that comes your way without testing it. But my process has been basically like I go through a brainstorming phase when I want to start something new. I might have a hypothesis like, hey, I have this problem. I think somebody else might have this problem, like you and your water bottles. And then I go through a research phase. And so everything John mentioned is totally a great strategy. I also look at like keyword research. So just looking at like how many people a month are searching for like the item that you're potentially selling. So if it's water bottles, maybe you use a keyword tool that helps you figure out, oh, okay, I was thinking water bottles, like, but I didn't realize like people are actually making water bottles for hockey players. And you realize like, oh wow, there's all these different niches in water bottles, and nobody's made like the best water bottle for hockey players. And they're like, you know, these extra big water bottles with easy to remove caps. So it kind of takes you down this like rabbit hole of all the products you didn't even know exist. So I see a lot of entrepreneurs like coming up with kind of like obvious product ideas that you just look around your house and you're like, oh, socks. I guess I could create a store for socks. Like, because you're only looking in your direct world. But
Right.
as soon as you kind of go down that rabbit hole, you start to find like, oh man, there's actually compression socks for for athletes, or and so that's how I've come up with every single one of my businesses, is starting with a hypothesis, and then through research it leads me down to a path where I'm like, oh, there's no good product for that thing that people are looking for.
I think Jackson and John, e-commerce people have to be very patient, because I can't see. That's why I'm not into e-commerce. I just build the water bottle and sell it to everybody and not focus on, yeah. But we have some questions coming in, Jackson and John, and I'll turn the first one to you, John. It's the overall thing of social media, but I'll read it. And thank you, Bruce, for sending that in. Feel free to send these comments in. Again, we're looking at them through the Microsoft My Questions tab. Those of you who want to do it on Twitter, do that as well. We're not seeing those going to ask that, but feel free to keep Twitter going, the hashtag #SurviveThrive. So, John, I'll turn that to you first. Jackson, you can answer if you like, but I have other questions as well. So Bruce says, and again, Bruce, thanks for asking, are tools like Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and other social platforms a good way to jumpstart an e-commerce business? And I think the answer clearly is you can use the tools, but I'm going to reword the question a bit, John. What are some ways possibly to use social media? You gave one insight where you said do research, but anything else that you can tell Bruce as he's trying to look to use this social media to jumpstart his e-commerce business? What do you say to him?
Okay. See, that's over there, like there. Over, my book is normally sitting up. I don't know. My cat must have knocked it over. I wrote the book on it, dude. Social commerce for epreneurs. That's what it's all about. Social and commerce go together so well, because you know the old adage of we buy things from people we know, like, and trust, right? So when I go to social, the first thing I want to do is start listening to the words and the phraseology of how people describe products, how they are having or use products, and things like that. So the first thing I do with social is definitely listen. After I can listen, I can use a lot of that stuff that they're saying and the way they're describing it to remarket to that customer. So like he said, where somewhere you would find out that there's not a good, hockey water bottle with a large opening. Somebody probably said that somewhere, and all of a sudden you turn that into the bullet points on why your water bottle is better than everybody else's water bottle. It's just social. There's so much there that you just got to listen. If you sit there, there's 4 key words. I just want to do this and I'm going to be done. There's 4 things.
Please, I love it.
Social media, social marketing, social commerce, and what's the 4th one? I can't remember. Social, okay. I can't even remember. But anyway, let's just use those 3.
Yeah.
The deal is that the thing that's the same in all of them is the word social. If you take social off the front, you'll get an understanding of what the platform's able to do. Social media is to be able to speak to a broad audience. That's what media does. Marketing is when you're actually marketing your product, when you're advertising a product. That's different than media. And commerce is the buying and selling. That's different than marketing and media, right? So social has the capacity to do a whole lot other than just the commerce piece. So think about that, because if you can build a brand affinity, people will come back to you more and more. When people say nice things about your product, make sure you're there to find that product that there's that review and use that to sell more product. All right, I could go on. Social.
John, I love that. I have a feeling that Jackson has a line of water bottles for hockey players. I have a feeling that he's that's his next $1 billion idea. Jackson, Tina Sampson asked Jackson, "Can you please share some of the struggles you experienced in e-commerce and how you overcame them?" So this is a broad question, Jackson, but I think that what people want to do is learn. You both have built thriving businesses. You've sold zillions of dollars of stuff and all this stuff. So Tina's asking, what were some of the things you struggled with, Jackson? And then in your struggles, whether it's emotional or whether it's business, or maybe it's a transactional part of just e-commerce, but Tina, how did you overcome them? So that's a broad, but however you'd like to answer that, Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to start. There's lots of challenges along the way. I think when I first started, I was lured in by the passive income like dream, I guess, but I quickly learned there's not really such thing as passive income. So it's just kind of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and really like understanding that you're never going to learn everything. And even like now, I've been doing it for over 10 years. I'm still learning new things, and every time it feels like, man, like if I could just do this, then I'll have it figured out. And then you get to the next stage and you realize there's this whole other world you didn't know. And so I think just accepting that it's like constant problem solving and just fully being comfortable with that. Like that's the job. E-commerce, in my experience, most people who are like e-commerce experts are just like masters at solving different types of problems. Like, okay, they know how to fix a website. They know how to do some marketing in different channels. They know how to do product development. And none of it's necessarily unsolvable, but it just is going to require constant learning. So if you're a person who doesn't like to learn all the time, then I feel like you're going to have challenges. And so for me, that is definitely something that's hard and causes a lot of like stress and anxiety, feeling like there's always something new you need to learn. But like you start to accept it more and more as you go through it. And but there's lots of ways to answer that question.
No, I appreciate that very much. And I think there's another question here, John. I'm going to turn this to you. And then Jackson, you may want to answer it. It's a detailed question that focuses on e-commerce. I don't understand the question fully, but I think that you both will understand it. So Jim Jonas asking, Jim, thanks for asking that question, brother. When the business expands to include associated product, is there a point that the e-commerce site gets diluted and should be separated? I think this hints on some things, Jackson, you and I talked about in our interview. But John, it's a question, makes sense. You have your core thing you're selling and you start adding ancillary items. Is there a point where you should separate that and focus on what you're selling? John, if you want to take it, or Jackson, if you have a ready answer, whoever wants to take that first.
I'm going to let Jackson tell because he's got 3 different sites that are completely different. I want to see what he has to say first.
Okay, cool. Jackson, you may be on mute.
Hey, sorry guys, my video etiquette isn't quite there yet. So
it's all good, man. It's all good.
Can you repeat the beginning of that question? I just missed the start.
Yeah, that's okay. When the business expands and it's just you have one core product and you have associated products, you're adding products to it. Is there a point when maybe you're adding too many add-on products that you should separate things and focus on something? I think that's what the thrust of the question is. How is it when the site maybe gets too messy or not?
Yeah, totally. I feel like the way to I feel like it's focus is insanely important. Like especially with sites like Amazon that has everything, you're never going to win the game of having the most options. So just really, can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Sorry, my video's pausing there. So like, okay. Just really focusing on something, either a customer who's the same customer, or a product that you're going to be the best person selling a certain product, or you're going to focus on a customer. So like with us, we have a suspenders store and we are just like the best place for suspenders. And we really own that. And I think there's some obvious additional products that you might add to that, but I think it really would dilute the business if you start to kind of sell everything. And so I think there's plenty of room for success just being the best in one very niche category, Or if you want to focus on a particular customer, I think that's actually a better approach. Instead of focusing on a product, it would be focusing on a customer. So maybe that's like hockey players or ultimate frisbee players. And then you have this kind of like loyal tribe that you can start introducing other products that still make sense within this niche. So yeah, I would be very careful about adding like random shiny objects to your store, or like anything that you can find. A lot of people think that the hard part is finding a product to sell.
Yeah.
So they just find a drop shipper that will sell something and they'll add all that drop shipper's products. But that finding the product shouldn't be the hard part. Like you should figure out what you want to sell and then find the absolute best one all over the world.
Yeah.
John, go ahead.
And I'm going to dovetail on that totally, because there you have a general practitioner and you have a specialist. And trust me, when you're a doctor, the brain surgeon makes way more money than the guy that sees everybody, the general practitioner. So there is an ability to niche out where you can get not as broad of an audience, but a very small audience, but you are able to charge more. You become very focused. You become the go-to in that industry and the expert, and people will pay you for that expertise. And we did that maybe like 15 years ago when we were all eBay. We were just finding everything we could, right? And our thing was, as long as we can make $4 on it, we would sell it. And we would sell so much stuff. We had like 500 different SKUs of different products. Today, we mainly sell shoelaces, and we've got 500 SKUs of one product. But the deal is, right, people are like, can you make money on shoelaces? I'm like, if you've got shoelaces nobody can find anywhere else, I've got 500 different shoelaces. So now we are the expert, and that's why we're king.
Wow. I love that. I love that. We got 2 more minutes to go. Jackson, I'm going to turn it to you first real quick. We're going to get off e-commerce to a bit, but just business in general. We're here as we record this, as we do this session, COVID, Corona, we're shelter in place. The economy's tanked. People are scared and worried, Jackson. Any particular advice, words of wisdom? You've already given advice and wisdom, but beyond just e-commerce, business in general or personally in general, that you can leave with us tonight to the Survive and Thrive audience who are listening and those who are listening to this afterwards as well, Jackson. Anything you can share with us as well?
Yeah, so it's definitely a hard time. And I mean, like certain people are affected, obviously more than others. But if you can take if you can see the opportunity here, like a lot of us have more time now to do things that maybe would have been put on the back burner in a normal busy life. It's almost like the world has been like put on pause for 4 months.
Yes.
So take advantage of that 3 or 4 months to like start doing something that would always get pushed to the back in other circumstances. And there's going to be businesses that come out of this. And I've even seen firsthand with some of my friends. I have a friend who's a physio, and he has been working for a company for so long, and he's taken this time, like he's now started his business, started doing search marketing for it, is starting to get online clients. And so there is like, I see the opportunity here for so many people, and I feel like it's just important not to waste that with watching Netflix too much.
Absolutely. I love it. John Lawson, final words of wisdom for us, business overall, not per se e-commerce, but business overall. You have years of experience. What do you think?
I'm going to watch Tiger King. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So basically, I definitely feel you on that, what he just said, because look where we are, guys. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, not a once in a lifetime disaster. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And when times are good in our businesses, we can overlook a whole lot of the minutia that we should be paying attention to. So all of you guys, if you don't have your email sequences together for cart abandonment, time to put those together. If you don't have your welcome email sequences together, go ahead and get that together, man. You need to rewrite those and put keywords into your descriptions and your titles. Now is the time. Back in the day, it was going so fast, we didn't even have the time to do all those things. Right now, things are a little bit slow, maybe a little bit chill. It's time to go ahead and sweep things up and get it real nice and get your house together.
Wow. John Lawson with Colder Ice, Jackson Cunningham, JJ Suspenders, and more. Gentlemen, I wish we had more time, but we don't. Jackson, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you. John Lawson, appreciate your time. Thank you, gentlemen, so very much.